it is so easy to cheat on ourselves,
Yes.
right?
What's worked really well is identifying the 3 or 4 things that I like to do every single day that are going to help set me up for success. In order to keep a harmonious home, everyone has to be clear on what their tasks and responsibilities are, how they contribute, why that's important.
Our reliability is part of our reputation that precedes us in every aspect, right?
When you say yes to something, are you really truly saying yes to it because you want to, because you have the time and bandwidth and capacity, passion, whatever? Or are you saying yes out of obligation?
So, Seema, the other day I was reading a chapter from a book that I'm really loving right now. It's called Mental Toughness. And there was this conversation about skills that are so important to our success as an adult, but that no one really takes the time to expressly learn or to share with us or to teach us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Like these types of skills that are so fundamental, but they're sort of just, glossed over.
Yeah, I think the misnomer is soft skills.
Yeah, we did talk about this with Sharanya, right?
Yeah, they're not soft skills. They're actually quite difficult. They're quite
Yeah.
hard in that way, but they're undertaught, or at times I think undervalued, or maybe we just don't spend enough time thinking about what it's like when we're missing these skills until we're in the thick of it, and then we're wondering, where did we go wrong?
Yeah. Yep. And with Sharanya, I think she had a really nice way of reframing it as core skills or, human skills
Right.
that, to tie into the name of our show here. So, one of the skills that I've been thinking about lately in view of what I read is the skill of being reliable or to be thought of as, having reliability. What do you think about that?
I think it's, especially in this day and age, something that we would do well to slow down and examine. Um, we talk about in terms of just how quick everything happens in this day. Like I so much as think about something and it seems like my phone pulls up the thing that I'm thinking about. And then
Mm,
I, without question, know that in an hour, 2 hours, I might have that at my doorstep if I so choose. Right. I'm
yeah.
relying on these systems to work. And we've become more and more reliant on systems. And when they don't work, things like the internet, things like
Yeah.
Uber, things like bank drafts,
Right.
um, that kind of throws us for a loop. But importantly, I think a lot of us are suffering from, not suffering, but we're experiencing what it's like when we don't have reliability within ourselves and then
Hmm.
also with and for each other.
Right. Yeah. And, I don't remember how many degrees do we have between us? I think we have at least four, right?
Yeah, if not more.
Yeah. And yeah, four, if not more. And I went to school in two different countries, and I don't remember anyone drawing to my attention this, 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 this aspect or, thinking that you need to be reliable
Mhm.
to the people around you, to your commitments, to your obligations, and this is how you should develop it. In fact, I think even with my kids, as I think about it, and you might relate to this, that you're just sort of supposed to figure out how to be reliable and how to keep your word and how to stick to your obligations and your commitments by whatever you go through in school or sports activities or whatever you pick up by seeing what other people do around you, right?
Mhm.
Did you ever think of, anyone ever bring squarely in your focus this this skill of reliability?
I mean, in terms of grades, like I think at some point I internalized the message of this needs to be a consistent deliverable. Like
Hmm.
straight A's needs to be a consistent deliverable. That should not be something that anybody has to question, including myself. So
Yeah.
developing that right. For those of you who don't know, my dad actually is he owned an auto repair shop for years. He's and a lot of what he talked about was and he still talks about, is reliability in our vehicles in terms of safety and everything else. And so like that's I don't know why that came to mind just now, but that was another big aspect of it, was like, are you choosing things and showing up and making decisions in a way that is going to yield reliability?
Yeah. Yep. And I think, your dad's your example of your dad and the reliability, for some reason it brought a Toyota Camry to my mind. We are not sponsored by Toyota, although I think a lot of Indian people rely on the Toyota Camry car. So Toyota, if you're listening to this, my DMs are open. You can slide
As are
in,
mine.
and we can talk about sponsorship. But the reliability with the car aspect is really interesting, because at least for me, reliability comes down to trust, right?
Yeah.
Do you trust that something or someone is going to be there when you need them, or they will do the thing that they've committed to? And in the professional sphere, you don't have to rely on micromanaging, or just reliability.
Yeah.
There's no other way to say it, but can you depend on someone or something
Mm-hmm.
to be there in the way you expect it to
Right.
be, um, when you sort of signed up or developed a relationship or an engagement with it, right? What does reliability mean to you, Seema?
It means that if I need something, I trust that you're going to come through for me. Not come through for me
Hmm.
when it's 75 degrees outside and you feel like it.
Yeah.
But when I need something, whether it's the middle of the night or whatever the situation or circumstance is, I am going to be able to count on either a person or a service to work, right? To give me the support that I need.
Right. Yeah. And I think we're on the same page. I think it comes down to trust at many
Mm-hmm.
levels, right? And I think trust is the thread that weaves its way through so many, if not every aspect of our life, whether it's career, whether it's your success, whether it's your finances, your relationships, with your spouse,
Right.
right? Your significant other is relying on you for certain aspects or features of your relationship, and that all comes down to trust, which is why I think talking about reliability is so important.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about relationships, we rely on certain tasks to be done, right? Like if
Hmm.
I know Anjana had mentioned in a previous episode, taking out the trash, right? That's something that she
Right.
relies on you to
Yeah.
do. Or
Yeah.
if you split up who pays the bills or who picks up the kids, even within the
Hmm.
kids, like in order to keep a harmonious home, everyone has to be clear on what their tasks and responsibilities are, how they contribute, why that's important. There has to be
Right.
buy-in, but then importantly, they in order for it to really be successful, we have to show continuously, like, yes, I'm able to get home and lock the door when I get home. I'm able
Right.
to, flush the toilet when I use the
Right.
bathroom and then wash my hands and shut the light off, right? Like those things are there in the home setting. But even for like when you hire an electrician, for example, we just had to hire an electrician for something. And
Right.
it was
Yeah.
important that when the people said they were going to show up, they showed up. And it was interesting. Not
Right.
only did they say, we're going to show up and we'll be there, but the guy called 30 minutes before he was supposed to come, telling us he was on his way. And he said, hey, I'm by a gas station. Can I get you anything? A cup of coffee? Maybe maybe you just need me to pick up some food for you. That was above and beyond. But to me, demonstrated reliability. We're here to
Yeah.
make sure that you're comfortable and it's not too much
Absolutely.
for us to support you, because in turn, then
Yeah.
you are going to support us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. We can talk about the personal dynamic or the professional dynamic. I think it's the same. But, reliability really comes down to what other people think of you,
Hmm.
and can they trust you.
Right.
And that is, an aspect of branding, right? Every time you go to open a can of Coke, you're trusting that the brand will deliver what you have come to rely on it for, right? Same with Toyotas or MacBooks or anything like that, and same with people. And what's interesting is that we all have these social contracts with each
Right.
other, right? As we go through life. And when you're driving on the road and there's this yellow line separating you from the other car, or even this dashed white line, you're relying that the person next to you is going, and you're trusting that they're going to keep their car in their lane.
Right.
And we're all buzzing about and moving, and you don't even give a thought to, like, what if that person is not going to keep their car in their
Right.
lane, right?
So true.
And so you're relying on this in so many different aspects. You go to the dentist, you're relying on the dentist to not drill your tongue, but to drill your tooth, right?
The right
I mean,
tooth.
so many, the right tooth, exactly. And sometimes mistakes happen, but that's where we can get into a lot of trouble, is if we're not careful and cognizant of the fact that our reliability is part of our reputation that precedes
Right.
us in every aspect,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now that we've talked about what reliability is and why is it important, I think it gets really interesting, because there is the trust that people have in us, or you might have in someone else, right? So I trust that Seema is going to show up to record this podcast, and she's not going to be completely lit on like 40 glasses of wine. And, there's this social
Right.
contract. But Seema, you mentioned something earlier, in that there's reliability and trust with yourself.
Right. Correct.
What is all
I
that
just
about?
feel like we all have our own sets of values and things that are important to us, right? And so, like, working out's a great example. I know we use that one a lot, but I
Hmm.
think it's just widely, it's one most people can understand. Is if I say I'm going to get my 10,000 steps in, and I don't, there's
Yeah.
now, if I value doing what I say,
Mhm.
then when I don't show up for myself consistently, then we slip into guard mode, right? We slip into the judgment of self and saying things like, I'm not good enough, I'm never going to be able to achieve my fitness goals, I'm going to die of a heart attack, why can't I get my stuff together, what's wrong with me? So reliability is really, really important when it comes to setting goals and going about achieving
Yeah.
your goals, because
Hmm.
otherwise, without that reliability, you have no consistency. And without consistency, you cannot create desired results.
Yeah. And so I think when I hear everything you say, what comes up for me is that reliability or trust in yourself really underpins our belief in
Yeah.
ourselves. And whether we can trust ourselves, or we can rely on ourselves to get our own back and to do the things that we say we're going to do. And what's interesting about this, when we're talking about ourselves, and going back to the workout example, is that it is so easy to cheat on ourselves,
Yes.
right? You're in the gym, or you're getting your steps, and you said 10,000, shout out to KMac, and you get to 909.87. 13 steps is not going to make a difference. Kunal's never going to know about it. But, and it's raining, and you're tired, and you're running late, you're 5 minutes too late, and now, Sticky Buns is expecting you to come home, but you've got 13 more steps to do, and you're caught between being reliable to your family or your
Right.
obligation or your job, or just cheating on yourself a
Yeah.
little bit. What do you do, Seema? You cheat on
I don't
yourself?
think there's a right answer that applies all the time, because
Hmm.
it's a matter of integrating. You can have a set of values, and those
Hmm.
priorities of those values may shift in a day where
Right.
I'm on my cycle and I don't feel very good. And I know that this is really kind of the best I can do. And doing that little extra is going to push me over the edge. I might say, it's not cheating on me, it's honoring where my body is at. if I that day know a storm's coming in, and if I don't get home, then I'm going to get caught in the storm. I might put myself in an unsafe situation, or I might be running late to where then I can't do the kids' stuff. The kids are relying on me. Sticky Buns is relying on me. For
Yeah.
those of you who don't know what we're talking about, go check out Dr. Flores and his episode that we did. Super fun. But yes, what I do in a given circumstance is never black or white. But it's me trusting that I can rely on a clearly identified set of values and doing that relatively consistently. That's going to yield the guard being at bay or being just attended to where I leave feeling like I've made the best decision for the time and the information that I had. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does. And I think all of that I 100% agree with. But I think there is a subset of time where the reasons seem real, but they're really just our rationalization to make them seem real. And only each one of us can figure what that is. But, if it's your last set at the gym and you're like, I'm done. I don't feel like it today. And you get into that pattern without, legitimately having like, I've left the window open, or I'm really not feeling well today, or my kids are waiting to pick me up. I think if you can, there is a sliver of where I think where you can cheat yourself and you can talk yourselves out of things, and that can become a habit if you're
Yes.
not
And if you
careful.
haven't listened to our
Right.
episode, White Lies, Think Again, this is kind of what Dinesh is talking about, is there are always opportunities for us to cheat ourselves. And
Right.
that's exactly what we're doing. We're cheating ourselves out of our own greatness. We're cheating ourselves out of our own opportunities to be better today than we were yesterday.
Right. So how do we know? How do I know when my brain is offering me a reason that seems really good? And it could be I'm tired. It could be the window's left open. It could be I'm running late. It could be anything that makes sense in the moment. But I don't know. It's one of these. I don't know if I'm cheating myself. How do I know?
How do you know? That's, I think, different for everyone too. But I think we do know, right?
Right.
Like, not if it's not an easy answer and you're hemming and hawing and like, what do I do? I don't know. You do
Right.
know. You know.
Yeah.
You know. Take those last few steps. Do the last reps. Like, do a finisher. Um, you know, show up for yourself in the way that you would want other people to show up for you.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think you're right. I think you do know. I think we all know. We all have that voice in us that whispers that when we're letting ourselves off the hook,
Mm-hmm.
and when we legitimately are at a stopping point. And, just sticking with the workout example, for example, on Sundays, my son has practice like right, literally next door to my gym, right? So I dropped him off. It's 45 minutes of practice. And by the time I get to my gym, he's got 35 minutes. And I know that I'm there for 35 minutes, right? And yeah, is it my full workout? Absolutely not. Do I have to leave to go pick him up? And I know when I'm looking at my watch, I'm like, okay, I've got 90 more seconds. I can get one more set in. Versus when I'm like, yeah, today's not it. I'm going to leave early and I better go tie my shoes or clean my shoes or something like, you could tell when you're
Oh
making up
yeah.
an
I'm gonna
excuse to
wipe
get yourself
down the
out.
machine a little bit. Like, just make sure I'm really wiping it down. Yeah.
Right. And so I want to impress on everyone that if you start to cheat yourself and you start to develop this reputation with yourself of being unreliable, what starts to happen is that not only might we start to be unreliable with others, is that we start to think other people are unreliable
Mhm.
as well. Like we start this entire social contract of this fabric starts to come unravel.
Yeah, I always feel like I'm saying this all the time. Inner peace creates outer peace, and you can apply that to anything, right?
Hmm.
Whether it's peace or not, if you're reliable to yourself and accountable to yourself, you will see that in other
Right.
people. The
Hmm.
moment you veer from that, your brain is going to do brain things and it's going to start to see and justify all the ways that other people aren't reliable either. Um, we
Hmm.
are we experience things as a result of the level of consciousness that we're in, the state of mind that we're in. And so if we start to not show up for ourselves, that's going to get you in a very different place than if you come from showing up for yourself with consistency, with compassion, with reliability.
Yeah.
Totally different path to a totally different place. And you get to decide, what outcome do I want?
Hmm. Yeah. Yep. So, what are some ways for us to boost our trust in ourselves and boost our reliability that other people have in us? Can you think of some tips that we can share with the listeners that you and I practice daily in in exercising this muscle of reliability? Because I do think that having a reputation of being reliable is that X factor
Mhm.
where when inevitably in any aspect of your life someone needs you, if they know they can count on you, or they know that you're going to do or deliver what you are known for, they'll put you in the path of opportunities,
Yeah,
right? No one likes to refer someone to that's a flake, for lack
yeah,
of better words,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
And so I think it's critical to both your personal and your professional success, your brand, your reputation, all of the ways that people think of us um, in sort
right.
of society. Um, what are some ways that you uh, cultivate this
So I
reliability
think
muscle?
starting with yourself, right, is key. I think
Yeah.
we've identified that. And for me, what's worked really well is identifying the three or four things that I like to do every single day that are going to help set me up for success. And what I mean by that is
Yeah.
waking up at 5 a.m. or having my hot water first thing in the morning, getting my workout in,
Hmm.
getting a meditation in, whatever, getting your steps in, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe it's I wake up every morning and I make my kids breakfast, right?
Hmm.
Whatever that looks like for you. Pick those three or four things and really intentionally show up for them from a place of service, from a place of compassion, from a place of gratitude. And what that will
Yeah.
do is allow your brain and rewire your brain to start really recognizing um, just how much truly abundance of opportunity and blessings and all the wonderful things that we're trying to work so hard for, quote unquote, like it's all
Yeah.
there. We just have to see it, right? So when we
Hmm.
show up for ourselves consistently, or we show up for our kids, show up for our spouse, that's when we can start to sort of build momentum and steam. So that's one thing, is just pick a few things that matter to you and do them.
Hmm. For me, I like to. I'll share a 1A on a 1B maybe. I like to think of you know my interaction with the world around me and the people around me as having certain standards that I expect of myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? I like to hold myself to standards, and I think James Clear said something about you'll fall to your habits or your standards or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And I like to make sure that I can commit to my standards. This goes back to what you said, like your values or
Right.
whatever, right? What do you hold yourself accountable to? And the other way is I like to try to really be deliberate about what I can commit to and then do everything in my power, for lack of better words, move, mountains in the sea to make sure that I can get those
Right.
done. And what that sometimes requires is setting buffers,
Hmm.
right? Setting extra time and buffers to get some stuff done, right? And one of the things that we've done is commit to releasing a podcast episode every week. We have a lot of fun. It's something that is important to us, and for so many reasons, it's important to us. And to be perfectly transparent, it is almost 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, and Seema texted me this morning because we realized that we would be out of episodes in about 4 weeks. And she said, "Hey, let's record on these days or this date." And we said, "Let's do it tonight,"
Hmm.
right? And honoring that commitment to that I've made to myself and seeing that commitment through over a long enough period of time builds that identity of reliability.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are saying, like, I don't have a brand, because I know, Dinesh, you've said that a couple of times here, is I don't have a brand. I don't have, you all have reputations. You all have, and that is your
Absolutely.
brand.
Right.
So think about that as you move forward with your day, and here's the other thing is going back to value. Going back to when you
Yeah.
say yes to something, are you really truly saying yes to it because you want to, because you have the time and bandwidth and capacity, passion, whatever? Or are you saying yes out of obligation? Because
Right.
how you show up then for the thing you said yes to is going to show
Yeah.
up then in the end result. And so, for
Right.
example, if I had told you, Dinesh, like, we have to get these recordings taken care of, and you're sitting here upset at me because I'm quote unquote making you do these podcast recordings and you don't really want to do them, and there's a lot of friction, the end result's going to be less than desirable. And then what's going to be
Mhm.
said is, well, this podcast isn't worth our time. Dinesh isn't a good partner. Seema's not a good partner. She's pushy. She's overbearing. Dinesh is flighty. He doesn't really care about how we've scheduled our time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So just
Yeah.
if you're going to pick things to show up for, make sure that they align with who you are and your bigger goals. Um,
Right.
and build in those buffers so that if you hit traffic, if you aren't feeling well, if you, I don't know, get surprised with a date night out, I don't, insert whatever reason you want. You are not there with your back against the wall going, I've got to do this or else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you said. I mean, every one of us has a brand. We all have reputations. And one easy way, it's not completely accurate, but one easy way to think of brands are, what are people saying about you when you're not in the
Exactly.
room, right? Are they saying that, that person's easy to work with? Are they always down? Are they complaining? Are they just a helping hand? That is the reputation. And if you have a reputation of being unreliable with others, that's one thing, but with yourself, that makes for a difficult road to walk, because anytime you think about doing something, or that that feeling of potential bubbles up inside of you, that insight, you're quickly going to discourage yourself and talk yourself out of it, because you don't have any proof that you are capable of doing hard things, or that you're capable of overcoming those things. And so that's why I think Seema and I really wanted to spend a whopping 30 or so minutes on the subject of
Yeah.
reliability.
And one thing I wanted to add there is, I encourage you guys to consider strongly the definition of what being reliable means to you and how
Hmm.
that differs from your expectation or definition of reliability for other people. Because what I often see is, well, I expect you to be reliable for me. I want you to come through for me. However, if I flake, that's okay. Insert
Hmm.
justification,
Yeah.
insert whatever circumstance. And so when you have this chasm of differential, right? There's this big gap between your definition for yourself and your expectation or definition of reliability for somebody else. That's going to cause a lot of friction. So just consider,
Hmm.
are there ways that you're not showing up for yourself, or what can you do to maybe better align those expectations or those goals so that things become easier? I'll give you another real quick example of, Kunal totally called me out today, by the way. And he was like, "You're not
Hmm.
getting your steps in." And immediately my brain was like, "Yeah, but I'm trying. I'm doing it. Like I did better than last week." That's not, the contract is he helps me get to my goals, right? And so I have to hold up my end
Right.
of the bargain. And by justifying it, I can't
Yeah.
expect Kunal to be this fantastic coach who's going to get me results if I'm not willing to show up and do the work and hold myself in integrity with consistency, reliability, whatever else. So just a quick personal share that we're sitting here and we're behind these microphones and screens talking to you guys about reliability. And we're also humans experimenting with what that means and how that shows up for us in life, and continuously asking ourselves to get better in every way. So we're right there with you.
Yeah. And my final point is that if we have done a poor job of convincing you of why reliability is something that's important and worthy of your attention, my hope is this final point will push you over the top. And that is that most lessons are caught, they're not taught. So for those of you that have little eyes and ears around you, they're watching. And the best gift you can give to your kids or your nephews, your nieces or brothers and sisters is the gift of understanding and awareness and recognizing that reliability is something that others in their lives will look to them for, and it will be the underpinning of their
Absolutely.
success.
Thanks for listening in, guys. Hey, guys. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, we would really love a favor. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, go ahead and make sure you are subscribed, you are following the show. If you haven't left a review, go ahead and please do so and share with your friends, because this podcast is for you and we're relying on all of us to come together so that we can all be happy humans together. Thanks.